ألا يا قلب لا تحزن على صحب فقدناهم، على صحب لهم جرح عميق ما ذكرناهم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Amma ba'd. So today we'll speak about an interesting figure, the one who is, we could say he is not criticized by anybody in Islamic history. He was loved by everybody. But before we go to that, we have to go to a bit of his history. So Abdullah ibn Zubayr ibn Aslam narrates from his father, who narrates from his father. So Aslam, and Aslam was usually accompanying Umar ibn al-Khattab on his night journeys. So one time Umar ibn al-Khattab was monitoring Medina in the night time, and he heard a voice from some house, and he just decided to just lean on the wall for a while to take a break. So he overhears a convo between a girl and her mother. So the mother says to the girl, add water to the milk. Omar heard this and he's thinking, okay, what's going to happen now? The girl says, no, I can't because Amir al-Mu'mineen Umar ibn al-Khattab forbade this. So the mother says, but he's not here. He can't see you. So what's the big deal? Just do it. You won't find out. So then the girl says, but the Lord of Umar knows. So I will not do this at all. So next day, Umar ibn al-Khattab was thinking, okay, this is a special person. Let's go see what she's like. So he sends someone and he's like, go and see if they added water to the milk or if it's as it is. He goes over to the place, and this person, he buys the milk and brings it and sees, okay, there's no water added. So like, okay, that's good. He goes to Asim and he's like, so Asim is the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and he says, I want you to marry that girl because she's righteous and she is muttaqi. So Asim marries that girl. From these two come a girl named Layla. Now Layla grows up in the household of Umar ibn al-Khattab around all the righteous Sahaba and whatnot. Then another person comes in the picture. His name is Abdul Aziz ibn Marwan ibn al-Hakam. He was also a very righteous man. He was very careful about what he earned. He narrated a hadith from Abu Hurairah, and he would be in the company of the Sahaba. He was very diligent in trying to gain as much knowledge as he can. He wasn't really a scholar, but he would look for a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If he didn't find a hadith with Abu Hurairah, he would send letters to Sham and say, if you know any of the Sahaba in Sham, send me some of their hadith so that I may learn. So Abdul Aziz marries Layla. From these two come a person who is for the first mujaddid in Islam, who is a mujtahid, who is among the best of people in his time. His name is Umar ibn Abdul Aziz ibn Marwan ibn al-Hakam. His kunya was Abu Hafs. About this, Imam Ahmad said, if you see a person loving Umar ibn Abdul Aziz and speaking good about him, then inshallah this person has good in him behind him. So when Umar was young, he used to go and see the stables of his father. And one day he was looking at the horse, and the horse ended up kicking him in the face. And he started to bleed from that scar. So his father came over and started to wipe away the blood and says, if you have this scar of Bani Marwan, you will be very lucky. So what actually happens is that Umar ibn al-Khattab sees a vision of the future. He sees that from my descendants there will be a person who will have a mark on his face, and he will fill the earth with justice, just as it was filled with injustice. When Abdullah ibn Umar had a son named Bilal, they saw a little mark on his face, so they thought it was him, but later on they said no, it's actually Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and then he became known as Ashaj Bani Marwan, the one with the mark of the Bani Marwan. From a young age, his father made it very strict upon him to be punctual in his Islamic studies. So when Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was 4 years old, Abdul Aziz ibn Marwan was delegated as the governor of Egypt or Misr in that time. So he ends up going there, and then he calls his family and says, I want you guys to come and live with me as well. So Layla goes to Abdullah ibn Umar. She's like, this is what I've been told, but I like Medina. I want to stay here. Abdullah ibn Umar says, well, he's your husband. You should listen to him and you go. But leave Umar with us. Leave your son with us so that we may nurture him and raise him well. So Umar ibn Abdul Aziz is still in Medina with all of the Sahaba and them. And Layla is gone there. So when she arrives there, Abdul Aziz is like, where's Umar? Where's Umar? She's like, I left him with Abdullah ibn Umar because he asked for me to leave him with him. So he's like, okay, Alhamdulillah, that's good. If he's with them, then that's fine. What happens one day, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was late to one of his classes. So his teacher told one of the people in his household who ended up telling Abdul Aziz ibn Marwan. So Abdul Aziz ibn Marwan says, okay, did you guys ask him why he was late? So they're like, yeah, he said he was playing with his hair. Like, okay, he gets a barber and he tells him, make sure you shave the head of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz completely bald. So that shows you, if anything distracts you from the knowledge of Deen, just get rid of it. That's how his policy was with him. One day his father decided to return for Hajj and he wanted to know, like, how's my son going? So he goes to Salih bin Kisan and he says to him, tell me about my son. And he says, there's no one with more taqwa and the fear of Allah than this boy amongst the people here. It was said that one day when he was young, he started to cry. So his mother says to him, why are you crying? He says, it's the fear of death. Then she ended up crying too. And this was a common thing throughout his entire life. He would constantly remember death. He learned from 8 of the Sahaba, and he learned from about 30 of the Tabi'een. From the Tabi'een, he learned from Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. And Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, after Umar became governor, he was the only governor that Sa'id ever visited. He never liked to go amongst any of the other rulers and visit them. But with Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, he went to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and they were literally like friends even after governorship and Khilafah. Whenever Umar had a question that was bugging him a lot, he would say to Sa'id, and he would like, come here, help me out. I need your help. He had, in some narrations, 14 sons and 3 daughters, and in other narrations, 12 sons and 6 daughters. It was said that one of his sons died. His name was Abdullah. When he was burying Abdullah, he was smiling. So someone said to him, why are you smiling? He says, I'm not smiling because I'm happy he died, but I'm smiling because he always was from the most righteous of my sons and always reminded me to fear Allah. So I have good hope for him in the Akhirah, inshallah. One day he was reading the Quran and he started to cry out of the fear of Jahannam. So his wife enters in. She also starts to cry. Then his son, another son named Abdul Malik, enters in. He starts to cry and he says, why are you crying, oh father? So Umar says, it's fine, like, don't worry about why I'm crying, but I fear for you and your family. So his wife is Fatima bint Abdul Malik. So Abdul Malik, from a young age, he liked Umar ibn al-Khattab or Umar ibn Abdul Aziz a lot. So he would just always be with him, be very friendly to him, treat him like his own son. And this is how later on, you see how he merges within the family in a way because of how much he was around the sons of Abdul Malik. So there's a little interesting thing about Fatima. She was like surrounded by royalty from every end. Her father is a Khalifa, her grandfather is a Khalifa, she has 3 brothers, all of them are Khulafa, her husband is a Khalifa. Early on in his life, around the age of, I could say, in his late 20s, he was given the governorship of Medina. And during that, an incident happened where a person named Khubayb bin Abdullah was narrating some very weak hadith to back up his points. So Abdul Malik bin Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik got really mad at this and he said, to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, lash him 100 times for this kind of act, for trying to use the deen to impress your peers or try to get your point across when it's not even from the deen. Umar got a bit angry at him as well, so decided to take the punishment a step forward. He pours cold water on him and makes him stand in the evening outside. Then he puts him back in the prison, but by this time he had already caught pneumonia, so he has a disease and is freezing right now. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz sees his state in such sickness, so he says, okay, I'll release you, go try and get medical help. But by the time he even gets to his house, he's seen on the bed and he just died. So there's a guy named Al-Mahdi Shun, and he goes to see Khubayb. He sees that he's dead, but Umar doesn't know he's dead. Then he goes over to Umar's house and he asks for permission to enter. He enters and he sees Umar is sitting there like he's looking like there's some kind of pain going through his body. Like he said that it was as if I saw Umar going through labor or something. Like he had that kind of look on his face of extreme pain. So then Umar says, what has happened with Khubayb? He says, you don't know? He just died. Umar, upon hearing this, he faints and passes out. Then he comes back, he regains consciousness, says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, faints again. This kept happening a few times. So this incident was a mistake on his part. He didn't mean to try to kill him, but because of this mistake, he, for the rest of his life, whenever anybody would mention like, oh, you've done this good deed, you've done that good deed, he would always say, what about Khubayb? He would always think like, you think my good deeds are a lot? I murdered a person. That's how he thought of it, that he had committed murder. So then uh, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz had a little bit of a fearsome approach with the rulers in his time as well. One of the people, the governor of Iraq at the time was Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. What would happen is, because Umar ruled Medina with such great justice and equality, everyone from Iraq decided, let's just ditch uh, the lands of Hajjaj and go to live under Umar ibn Abdul Aziz's land. So they start migrating. Hajjaj gets a bit angry. It's like, tells Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik, what's going on? Why is Umar like getting all the people on his side? So Al-Hajjaj, because he had power and economic authority as well at the time, he basically pressured Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik to dismiss Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. But before this happens, there was a lot of back and forth between them, like the hatred and the anger was between them. Even on one occasion later on, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz makes takfir of Hajjaj because of the way he treats the Sharia. But one day, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz gives an advice to Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik and says, you will be held accountable for what your governors do. So tell them to stop killing innocent people because they're all Malimeen. Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik sends a letter to all of them, but Hajjaj thinks it's specifically to him when he gets the letter. So he wants to try to back up the point that I'm not killing anyone for a wrong reason. I only killed the Khawarij. So he actually goes and finds somebody named Arabi al-Haruri. So he's actually a Khariji. And he says to him, come here. He's like, what do you say of Muawiyah? The guy says nothing. He's like, what do you say of Yazid? He says, Lahnatullah alayhi. Basically, he curses Yazid. And he says, what do you say about Abdul Malik bin Marwan? The Haruri curses him as well. He says, what do you say about me? He curses him as well. So what do you say about Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik? And then he curses him as well. So then Hajjaj says, okay, I want to prove that I don't kill wrongful people. So he grabs him and he says, go to Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik. So they go. Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik had an executor named Ibn al-Rayyan. He's sitting there with the sword. And he asks the same question to Al-Arabi. And after he gives the same answers, Al-Walid gets mad and says to Ibn al-Rayyan, get up and kill him. So he gets killed, and then he calls Umar ibn Abdul Aziz and like, my policy is wrong. Was I wrong to kill him? He says, yes, you were wrong to kill him. So what do you mean? He insulted me and my father. He insulted the Khulafa. Why should I not kill him? He says, you should have imprisoned him and asked him to repent from that, not kill him for that right away. And this was his policy with everyone, that he was very calm, that even later on when he becomes a Khalifa, he also exhibits this. Okay, now that's enough backstory. Now let's get to how he became the Khalifa. And I'm trying to very much summarize his life because there's just so many details that this could go on for hours. He became friends with Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik's brother named Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik. Now, Sulaiman was much more righteous and much more conscious. But since they were friends, Sulaiman would, always ask him. So when Al-Walid passed away, Sulaiman became the Khalifa, and the first thing Sulaiman did was he fired Al-Hajjaj, get rid of him. Second thing he did was that one day they were Umar ibn Abdul Aziz and Sulaiman bin Abdul Malik were walking, and a thundercloud came over them and started to, strike lightning. And Sulaiman got a bit terrified, and he says, maybe this is from the anger of Allah. So Umar says, no, this is not from the anger of Allah. This is from the rahmah of Allah. His anger sounds much different, meaning in the akhirah, the sound of Jahannam. So then Sulaiman was a bit uneasy, and he says, no, I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry at me. So here's 100,000 dirhams. Go and give it in charity somewhere. So Umar says, no, I have a better idea. He says, what is that? It's like, your people are asking for rights that they haven't been given. So Sulaiman got the hint, and he basically wrote to all of his governors, and it says, restore the rights of people, try to get rid of all of these unnecessary taxes. After a while, Sulaiman is about to pass away. He has a faqih in his presence, one of the ulama he really loved. His name was Raja. This was like a very strong personality and a very strong figure. He was also tall and very, you could say, he brings a presence of fear in the people. So Raja said to Sulaiman, is like, usually it would go in line, so you would probably put Hisham ibn Abdul Malik next, but he says, no, don't put Hisham, put Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. So Sulaiman says, that sounds good, he's a good man. So he writes in his will that the next person to become Khalifa is Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. And so Raja, after Sulaiman dies, Raja comes out of the place and he says to Umar, and he's like, you're going to become the Khalifa. But it's like, why? It's like, because I told Sulaiman to tell you to make you the Khalifa, and you're going to become the Khalifa. So Umar is getting the hint that, okay, I shouldn't argue. But still, he wants to try to get out of the position of responsibility. And at this time, Umar is only 37, so he's really young as well. So he goes in front of the people and he says, oh people, I have been delegated the task that I did not choose. And if you wish to pick somebody else, then please pick them. I do not want to be amongst you a tyrant that you do not like. So they all started to cry and they said, no, Wallahi, we choose you. You are the best for this job and you are the best amongst them. So Umar ibn Abdul Aziz gets the hint that, yeah, I'm stuck here forever for the rest of my life. So before he was Khalifa, he was very easygoing, bit flamboyant, buying expensive dresses. But as soon as he became the Khalifa, it was like the Zuhud of Hassan al-Basri descended in him, or even more than that. It is said that a man, after his Khilafah, met him, and he was wearing a cheap cloth, or cheap like thawb, worth 2 dirhams. So the man says, I met you in Medina when you were a young kid, and you used to not take anything less than 1,000 dirhams as a thawb. So what happened to you now? He says, responsibility has come upon me, so I can't spend from the people's money as I wish. One of the first things he did as a Khalifa was abolish all taxes besides the taxes legislated in the Sharia. So he only had zakat, the jizya, the ushur, and the taxes that were there with the dalil from the Quran, the Sunnah, the life of the Khulafa al-Rashidin. And this is going to do something under his reign that no one before him achieved and no one after him achieved besides the prophets. We'll get to that in a few minutes. He was so mutqin or so accurate in trying to be like the Prophet ﷺ in ibadah that one day Anas ibn Malik prayed behind him and said that I have not seen anyone pray exactly like the Prophet ﷺ like this man. Fatima bint Abdul Malik says that Wallahi, it was not that Umar used to spend a lot of his nights praying tahajjud and extra rakat or spend his time in a lot of ibadat of recitation of the Quran, but rather there was taqwa in his heart and he feared Allah more than any of you. I would see him in the night at times, awake from his sleep, shivering and crying, and I would ask him, what's wrong? And he would say, tomorrow I will stand before Allah and you will ask me about the people, and I don't know how I will answer. Abdullah ibn Umar had a son named Salim. So Salim, now going a little bit back, but Salim was very beloved to the people. He was a scholar amongst the people and he was always honored, even by Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik. He would like him and honor him. So one day, Salim enters upon Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik and Al-Walid says to him, oh, come here, sit beside me. So it's like giving him the seat of honor. This man, he's sitting there and he goes to Umar and he says, couldn't your uncle find a better dress to wear in the presence of Amir al-Mu'minin? So Umar, learning from the hustle of Umar ibn al-Khattab, who gave a very similar response before, he says that I don't see your clothes raising you to his rank, and I don't see his clothes lowering you to your rank. So I'm saying like your clothes didn't make you better, and his clothes don't decrease him. This is like when Umar ibn al-Khattab said to Abu Ubaidah Amir ibn al-Jarrah when he saw him in Jerusalem with ripped up clothes and patches on them. So he said, نحن قوم أعزنا الله بالإسلام, that Allah, we are a people that Allah honored us with Islam. So we don't seek honor from anything else, or else we'll be humiliated. During his Khilafah, he was very careful with the money of the Baytul Mal. He himself didn't take much, and to his sons and daughters, he would also say to them, like, don't expect to live an easy life. You're not going to always have a fun Eid. You're not going to always get what you want. And I'm not going to treat you more special than anyone. At the time he was given Khilafah, he said to Fatima bint Abdul Malik that, this life that we're going to go through now is not going to be easy. So you either donate your jewelry to the Baytul Mal and stay with me, or you leave me. So she said, no, Wallahi, I choose you. And she gave her jewelry away and to the Baytul Mal. It is said that he would always tell his advisors that at night time, don't leave the lamp on for too long. You'll be wasting the oil, and this oil is from the money of the people, and you'll be asked about it in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Even used to say that don't waste any ink as well. He was very careful with what the people or what the possessions of the people and how to deal with them. So now comes a bit of his amazing achievements during his Khilafah. He was the first one to administer the writing down of hadith and get together the collection of hadith. So he told Abu Bakr ibn Abi Hazm, or Abu Bakr Muhammad bin Hazm, who was his governor at the time in Medina, that go and find all the muhaddithin and tell them to come together, listen to their narrations, collect them amongst yourself and codify it, because I fear that the ulama will die, the knowledge will go with them. So, let's preserve it. He also created some schools and administered the teachers. And from his policies was, if I put a scholar in charge of any of these schools, you are not to do any work outside of teaching. I will take care of your salary. I will take care of your families. You are not doing anything else. You are just to teach and bring out the best students in the Sunnah. So, because of his policy of abolishing taxes, people were not as poor anymore. But a bit more interesting than that is that Yahya bin Sa'id, this was But a bit to the later time of his reign and his rulership, that Yahya bin Sa'id says that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz delegated me to Africa to go and distribute the zakat funds. I went through all of Africa and I could not find anyone to take the zakat. Whenever I would go to any of them, they would say, "Oh, we already possess the nisab, we're the ones who give the zakat." So he did this. Then he came back to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz and says, "Yeah, you don't have anyone in the entire Khilafah now to take zakat." So he says that I ended up spending money on freeing the prisoners. So you can see from his policy and his taqwa, his immense carefulness with the wealth in the Baytul Mal, he made everyone in the Khilafah rich except his own self and his own family. It is said that one day a woman from Iraq came for a little request, and she was sitting with Fatima bint Abdul Malik. So Fatima says, wait, Amir al-Mu'minin is outside, he'll come. So this woman sees a man enter. He's wearing like shaggy clothes, ragged clothes, not very noble looking. And then he's like, he's painting something on the wall with his hand, like trying to fix a portion of the wall. So she says, can't you tell your servant to get a bit of a better piece of clothing? So Fatima laughs and she's like, that's not my servant, that's my husband. It's Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the guy you're here for. Rahimahullah ta'ala. On another occasion, he also was very fearless. So one day he gets the news that from his ambassador, he sends him to the Romans and they wanted a peace treaty. While he's in their land, he sees a blind man who has his eyes taken out. So the Romans are doing nothing about it. So this Muslim ambassador goes up to him and is like, what's wrong with you? Why are people ignoring you? The man says, I accepted Islam, and the governor says that if I don't revert back to Christianity, he will have my eyes taken out. So I chose to stay a Muslim and got my eyes removed. So the ambassador hears this, like, okay. He doesn't even go to the governor to visit him about the peace treaty. He leaves that place immediately and goes back to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz and tells him the story. So Umar, in extreme anger, he writes a letter that from Amir al-Mu'minin, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, to the dog of Rome, release that man from your possession, bring him to me in the best of conditions, and fashion him up in the best of conditions, and bring him to me, or else I will release an army against you, the likes of which the front of it will reach your door, while the last of it hasn't left my door. So he's basically saying, I declare war upon you guys now. Either you give this man back or I'm going to destroy your dawla. So, and there was another incident that made him, there was another, in one riwayah, it says that this man, he said that Umar has ignored us. So this man, he assumed, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz knows about everyone in the world, that he's actually ignoring me. So when Umar heard this, he started to cry and he says, I will be held accountable for this on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So the man is sent back in the best of conditions. And then afterwards, the Romans send a guy back and they said, okay, so can we discuss peace now? So Umar says, yeah, peace, get lost. I'm not discussing peace with you guys now. You are now declared as Darul Harb between us. There's no treaty or peace between us. His Khilafah was from Spain, Al-Andalus, all the way to what is nowadays Turkestan, so by the border of China. So in this entire Khilafah, in this entire reign, he was able to control it with so much authority and power that everyone in the Khilafah loved him. When they heard of his name, they would become overjoyed. And if he ever heard of the need of a person, he would become tearful and rush to it. He used to say that not an hour goes by except I remember death. And this was the thing that made him what he was. He always remembered death. He always had the fear of the akhirah. Despite everything, he wasn't just a ruler alone. It was just like, I know a few hadith here and there. He was actually mujtahid, so he had the knowledge to do ijtihad in any matter. Imam Ahmad says that no one's speech from the Tabi'een constitutes as proof in it of itself except Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. So if he says something, you can say that is hujjah in itself. Sufyan ibn Uyayna and Imam Malik ibn Anas, they said he is the Imam of the time, like Imam and as leader in the deen. He was amongst the best. He was friends with Hassan al-Basri. And amongst one of the things he did when he became Khalifa was elect 10 ulama as his council of advisory. He would always have them amongst him. Whenever a matter would come up, he would always say to them, come and help me out. So let us look at his life before we conclude talk about how he ended his life, because the end of his life is just as amazing, if not even more, than how he lived his life. And it's a sign, it's a bushra from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that inshallah he will be in Firdaus al-A'la. So from a young age he was a muttaqi and he had a fear of death. He learned the Quran when he was young. He learned from the best of people. And his father instilled him in the punctuality and the love of deen. So anything distracts from deen or from the knowledge of deen, get rid of it. His immense respect and friendship ulama. He didn't, hang around just the awam. Yeah, when he was young, he was a bit flamboyant and in the dunya and used to spend a bit carelessly, but his friends were still the best of the people. They were righteous people. So even if, we at times are a bit not like these zuhad, they're on another level completely, we should always keep friendship as the best, as the pinnacle of all principles, that if your friends are good, inshallah, you will be good. If your friends are evil, then there is only one route that can be taken with such a person. And this is not just with Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Later on in the times of Islam, Ibn al-Jawzi, he was a righteous alim. He had a few sons and daughters, and from them he had a son who ended up getting evil friends. And because of these evil friends, his son, who used to give khutab and speeches in the masajid, his son ended up becoming one of the most worst or one of the most evil people in that time. He became like very rude, and even he would start to like sell his father's books, steal from his father, sell his books. So to the point that Ibn al-Jawzi became so mad at him that in the Fajr Salah, he used to make dua against him. So if your friends are good, inshallah, you will be good. If your friends are evil, then only Allah can help such a person. Also, his immense reflection over the Quran. Whenever he read an ayah of the Quran, he didn't say like, okay, this ayah was revealed for the Quraysh, this ayah was revealed for the Yahud, this ayah was revealed for the Nasara, this ayah was revealed for so and so. No, he read an ayah revealed about Ahlul Kitab, he would start crying, saying that this is a message to me. If he read an ayah about Yawm al-Qiyamah, he would start crying. One day he descended the member to give the khutbah, he recited Surah Al-Takwir, so إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ. So he kept reciting and reciting, and as he's going through the signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah, he gets to the point about talking about Jannat and Jahannam, and he starts to cry, and he can't stop crying. And the people, the entirety of the masjid, they start to cry as well. He would always say that if you wish to see Qiyamah, then recite these surah, the three surah, Surah Takwir, Surah Infitar, and Surah Inshiqaq. And this is from a hadith of Ibn Umar, that the Prophet ﷺ said this. And that's another factor too, that his role model in life was Abdullah ibn Umar. He would always say to his mother, I wish to be like my granduncle, could say, or uncle, Abdullah ibn Umar. And his mother used to say, you are like him, inshallah. When he was about to die, or before that, what happens is that there's an account that Bani Umayyah got a bit angry with him, that, he's not really giving us the flamboyant lifestyle that we all wanted and we were all used to. So they decided to get a slave. Said to the slave, "We'll give you 1,000 dinars and we'll free you if you poison Umar ibn Abdul Aziz." So the slave fed him the poison. After a while, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz felt that poison, and he calls for that slave and he says, "What did you put in the food?" And then the slave tells the whole story that I was offered money and they said this to me, and so I didn't poison you because I really hated you, but because I was desperate. So Umar says, "Okay, I forgive you, but get out of this place, because if somebody who likes me finds out, they're going to kill you." After that, he didn't leave it there. He said that administer qisas against all of Bani Umayyah who told him to do this. Go and punish them. When he was about to die, the people around him said, he said something very interesting. He said, "What are these faces that resemble neither jinn nor human?" So he was seeing the angels already. And then right away he dies as soon as he says that. He died in 101 after Hijrah. He was born in 60, some say 61, some say 62 after Hijrah. So he lived about 39 or 40 years. He died on the 19th or the 20th of Rajab on a Friday. He only left behind him about 19 dirhams and in some narrations 14 dirhams. So he didn't have much. But the reason for this is because he never took anything from the Baytul Mal. So he was so strict he wouldn't take one there. So someone has said to him that, you made your sons poor. So Umar says, this money is not theirs from the Baytul Mal. I would rather they be poor than they enter the fire of hell and I enter the fire of hell. So this man, he says that I saw a few years later that the sons of Umar would give 100 horses in the path of Allah, while the sons of Hisham ibn Abdul Malik, one of them was seen taking charity. And Hisham ibn Abdul Malik left behind for each of his sons 100 million dinars. Oh, may Allah have mercy on the likes of him. He really was in all of the qualities of a mujaddid. So he was a faqih, he was a mujtahid, he knew about the people. And this is how we should approach it, that don't aim for less, aim for the highest. It was one day he was sitting and someone asked him, what do you wish for? So I wish to be the Khalifa in a way that, like, he didn't desire it for the sake of power and responsibility, but when he was young, he was like, I want to be the Khalifa so that I may rule it with justice, the world with justice, and gain a spot under the shade of Allah. This is another thing, like, let's just look at it. From the hadith, there is the mention of those who will be under the shade of Allah, that from those, he had four of the qualities. Firstly, he was a just ruler. Secondly, he was a youth who was brought up in the worship of Allah, so he didn't play around in the haram or even waste time in that matter. Thirdly, he loved his brothers for the sake of Allah, and only for that sake. So all of his relationships, all of his bonds, all of his meetings were based on that. And fourthly, he was a man whose heart was attached to the masjid. So inshallah, he will have a spot under the shade of Allah. It was said that they engraved on on the grave, it was written that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz believes in Allah. And then let's see from this that he did what no one ever after him could ever do. And it may be that, it's impossible that anyone would reach what he reached. But again, the one who gives tawfiq, the one who gives the ability to do all of this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Lord of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz is our Lord. So when we make dua, we should not make dua for like little things like, I'm not that great, so you know what, I'll make my dua, just, may Allah just make me amongst those who pray 5 times a day. No, our dua should be, Ya Allah, make me and make my brothers and sisters amongst those who pray a lot of tahajjud. Make us among those who change societies with your remembrance and your obedience. Don't don't hold back in your dua. Sulaiman alayhi salam, he made a dua to Allah that give me a kingdom that nobody after me will be given. So Sulaiman was given the control of the entire earth. And this is the thing. Aim high, have ambition, and always try to have good thoughts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who can make Umar ibn Abdul Aziz so great can also make us great, inshallah. But we have to put our effort as well. And with that we conclude. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Make us